Welcome back to my channel, Tami Tackles Everything. This week I am bringing to you something that's been very highly requested. It was actually highly requested when I used to do the podcast, and I'm happy to say that it has come up again because I love talking about birth stories. I love hearing people's birth stories. I love sharing my birth story. I think it is so important for us to hear all the different ways that babies enter this world. My 3 births are all completely different. I am expecting this 4th one to be completely different, and I can't wait to share that story with you once the time comes. So I thought it would be a good time to just kind of get down all 3 pregnancy/birth stories for you guys to enjoy. So I'm going to start today with Jax. Jax is my firstborn. He is gonna be 9 this year, which is crazy. So I had to literally pull out notes to remind me what his birth and pregnancy was like. I had previously spoken about it, so I had written it down. Ladies, you are going to forget your birth story. You won't forget the overall thing, but you may forget details. And this was a great example of how that happens sometimes, because when I look back at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, I forgot about that or this or whatever. So to set the scene, Jax was my first pregnancy ever. And it was one of total and utter joy for me. As you could imagine, I'd waited so long to finally get pregnant that we were so excited once we found out. Let me tell you a little bit about how that went down. So I was on the brink of 30 years old when we made a very conscious decision that we wanted to try to have our first baby together. So I remember us having a conversation about coming off of birth control and giving ourselves some time to, everybody always says you need time after you come off birth control to get your body back to this state where you can have a baby. It might take 2 months, it might take a month, it might take, oh, there goes a piece of paper. It might take 6, it might take a year. Who knows how long it will take. So we decided it was time to come off of birth control. At the time, we would have been married for about 3 years maybe. So it was, we had been together for a while, married for a while, and now deciding to do this. Plus, this whole time, we had really been co-parenting Gio as well. So Wayne and I don't know what it's like to be without children. We have no idea, because Gio was always in the picture. And so we had a very clear essence and vibe of how each other parented, which was all the more reason that we really wanted to go on this journey together. Now listen, when I decided that it was time to start trying, ladies and gentlemen, I was on every website, every forum, every chat. I became obsessed. And if you have a personality type like mine, you completely understand where I'm coming from. Raise your hands in the comments. When I tell you, a whole new world opened up to me. And I'm the type of person, when I'm starting something or doing something, I literally dive headfirst. I will learn everything about it. I want to know the whole thing. I want to know your experience, your experience, your experience, your experience. I want to know the whole gamut. I started to learn terms like EWCM, AF, DH, all of them. All of the abbreviations for everything, I knew it. And those are abbreviations to describe certain things like egg white cervical mucus.
Tasty.
Trust me, I knew it all. I wanted to know it all. I was tracking my ovulation. I was tracking my cycle. I had apps. I was doing the whole thing. It was crazy. By the way, my cycle was not textbook. It would come for this amount of days, then it would be this many days in between. It was all over the place, which took some getting used to be honest. And it took some understanding or becoming aware of my body and how my body was off of birth control, which was a whole new body, by the way. So like I said, I was keeping track of everything, not just my cycle, but I was also doing this wonderful thing we call symptom spotting. So I'm telling you, I could have sneezed. I would have been like, I'm pregnant. I'm definitely pregnant. I would go online and be like, I sneezed. It means you're pregnant. Let's do this. And by the way, if you're Jamaican, maybe this happens in the rest of the Caribbean as well. If a lizard happens to run across your foot, your path, wherever, that is a clear sign that you might be pregnant. So literally, I would be like on the lookout for lizards. I would see lizards, I'd be like, come on, run past my foot. Let's do this. So trust me when I tell you that I was sure every month, every week that I was pregnant. And by the way, nobody really warns you or tells you about the complete sadness and defeat that you feel when your period does come. When you POAS, you know what that means? When you pee on a stick. So when you take a pregnancy test, nobody tells you the devastation that you will feel when it is negative and you want it to be positive. Like, I'd never been so disappointed every time that would happen. And so it's totally normal. But there does come a point where you have to be like, enough is enough. You know, like you cannot do that to yourself every month. And that's something I figured out very quickly. The other interesting thing about that is that every time that I would take a pregnancy test and, you know, it was negative, nobody prepared me for the fact that I felt like something was wrong with me or could be wrong with me. In fact, it never dawned on me that something might be wrong with Wayne, especially because he had already had a son. And, you know, even if he hadn't, I don't think I would have thought anything was wrong with him. It's so normal and natural as women to feel like we are the problem, to feel like something is wrong with us. And, you know, I wasn't prepared for those feelings of even considering that I would not be able to have children. But these are the types of thoughts and feelings and emotions that came up in that, what now I know was a short period of time, based on so many women's stories of how long it takes them to get pregnant, how short it does, whatever it is. It didn't dawn on me in that time that I would have to deal with those emotions. Anyway, after months and months of going through that whole cycle, tracking, Googling, vitamin taking, all of it, I woke up one morning and I was like, my nipples are on fire. And that's not a normal thing for me. Even when my period is coming, like that's not a thing for me. So I went to Google and what do you know? That could possibly be a sign of pregnancy. And of course, my period wasn't due yet. It was coming up in a couple of days. But, you know, because I was tracking so hard, I mean, I was literally like looking at how many days past ovulation I was. It was intense, okay, guys? It was intense. I'm intense. It was intense. So I drove myself down to the pharmacy and I bought yet another pregnancy test, which is weird, by the way, especially when you're in the spotlight, when people know who you are. There is nothing weirder than buying a pregnancy test. I used to come up with all kinds of stories of who I was buying a pregnancy test for. I mean, they know. I know. But I was just like, you know, and you want to be like, yeah. Anyway, so I'm driving home now. So I'm driving home now, and nothing can prepare you for that drive home either, where you're thinking, the thoughts are going through your head. Like the thoughts between buying a pregnancy test and taking a pregnancy test and waiting for the results is ridiculous. Like the thought process is just out of this world. Like all the thoughts you never thought about before, you think about all of a sudden. So I go home, of course, my bladder's empty. So I'm drinking like 3 liters of water now because, you know, we need pee. So I finally get to do my POAS again, and I'm waiting my 3 minutes. I'm waiting my 3 minutes. It says 3 minutes, I'm waiting 3 minutes. And then there it was, my BFP. That's a big fat positive, if any of you don't know. And it was very faint because, like I said, my period hadn't come yet, or I hadn't missed it yet. Very faint. And I remember, this is something I always remember about that pregnancy test. I remember thinking, I'm a little bit pregnant. And of course, there's no such thing as a little bit pregnant. I was pregnant, but because the line was so faint because I tested so early, that was my first thought. And I just remember falling to my knees in the bathroom and just being overcome with just complete and utter joy, because the day I had been dreaming about finally was here. And to give you an idea of the time frame, it was only about 5 or 6 months since I'd been off of birth control. And so I knew that that was a blessing. I don't think I'd been so happy in all my life. And I remember, just whispering, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you saw my pregnancy announcement video, you'll see that I tend to say thank you a lot, especially when I found out I'm pregnant. It was a million thank yous, but it was also followed by a complete what the moment, because you freak out. Like, you literally, then this thing you'd wanted, it's here now, and then it's like, is this really happening? So I took several deep breaths, and I managed to kind of get myself together, get myself off of the floor, and I immediately was like, I have to go and tell Wayne. And I wish I had that video still. I know it's on a hard drive somewhere, but I can't find it now. And I remember just putting it in a bag. At the time, it was like a black Scandal bag. And I went into the nursery, which used to be his recording studio. And I told him I bought some candy for him, and I gave it to him. And he opened it, and he, in true Wayne fashion, was just overjoyed. He's the best person to tell you're pregnant, by the way. Like, he always has the best reactions and just becomes so loving, so excited. And of course, this was our first child together, so it was a really special moment in our lives. We spent the next few hours in total bliss. I mean, just as it always is, we just went into total imaginary mode, wondering what our lives are going to be like now that we were going to have a baby together. What was this baby going to look like? What was he or she going to be like? We didn't know. And I went on to have a really wonderful pregnancy. I hardly had any sickness. I didn't really have terrible symptoms or anything. I couldn't eat any chicken. Always a symptom with the boys. I think the worst part was that I gained 50 pounds, which I wasn't expecting. And I always joke and say I think my body was allergic to pregnancy, because I've never since then gained that much weight. And so, we literally just went on to have the most wonderful pregnancy. A fun fact is that my last performance that I did as Tami Chynn was when I was 6 months pregnant with Jaxen, and that was my last show, and I hadn't performed again until literally maybe 2 years ago, when I did a Christmas special. So I was intentional about that. I knew it was my last show, and it's so fun to sometimes pull up that footage and show him and say, you were in my belly, and anyway.
I know you watching me, 'cause I've been watching you, and if you didn't know, I'm ready for you. All over sexy, you want me walking, baby, high, why, oh, why? You've been waiting, I should take what I should take, but at this feeling that you're feeling, all the things I want to show, baby, my song to let you know. I think I like you, and if we got some time to spare, I just think you could fall in up a love. If I never know what I mean, it's hard to sing on a wooden ponytail.
I think now is a good time to mention that before I had ever been pregnant, I really thought that I wanted to have cesareans. I did not like the idea of pushing. It's true. Did not like the idea of a vaginal birth. I just was too scared, all of this stuff. I didn't realize, I guess, how much the media had made me terrified of something that is very natural and normal. And so even before I got pregnant, I was terrified of childbirth. When I got pregnant, and as I progressed in my pregnancy, there was nothing I wanted more than to have a vaginal birth. And not just a vaginal birth, I wanted to have a delivery that had no interventions. I didn't want to opt for an epidural. Like, I really wanted to go full 100 Mama Earth. Okay, guys? I really changed my mind about it. And I think it was because I started to read a lot more about it. I actually started to do hypnobirthing while I was pregnant with Jaxen. Now, if you've never heard about hypnobirthing, I think it's worth looking up because I'm probably going to do a terrible job of explaining it. But hypnobirthing is a method of pain management that can be used during labor and birth. So it involves a mixture of visualization, meditation, breathing. It's really one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced during my pregnancy and even during my labor, which I'll get into shortly. Like I said, they use visualization, meditations, mantras, relaxation, and deep breathing techniques. I just read that just to make sure I got it right. So like I said, if you want to know more about it, I would Google it, I would look it up, I would talk to other mummies about it, get on YouTube, have a look. It's I think gained more popularity now than even 9 years ago. But honestly, it was something that changed my mind about how I felt about giving birth. So like I said, there's so much that because of movies and shows and all these things that make us so afraid of our own bodies and what our bodies are capable of. And just the way that, you know, it's all done nowadays is just, it takes away so much of our power as women, as mothers. And so hypnobirthing really gave me a way to connect with my body and my baby in a way that I didn't even know was possible. So it allowed me to also kind of welcome any outcome as well, which I ended up having to do and which I'm about to tell you about. So by 36 weeks, I was over being pregnant, okay? Hey, anybody who's made it to 36 weeks, they know. By 36 weeks, I was finito. More so because I was excited though, right? Like, I want to meet my baby. I want to get my body back. I want to see you. I want to start getting into this next trimester, so to speak. And, you know, it's one of those things that you just can't explain unless you've experienced it. It's a long time to be pregnant. 40 weeks is how long is considered full term. Some women go past that. But literally, like, it feels like you are waiting forever. At about 38 weeks, I remember losing my mucus plug, which in itself was, you know, pretty interesting. And but it's always a sign that the show is getting on the road. And so by 39 weeks, I woke up one morning at 3 o'clock in the morning and I felt what can only be described as, you know, quite intense period pains. Now, I had grown up with very bad periods, very bad. I mean, where I had to miss school, where I was throwing up, where I had to get pain medication injected, like it was bad. So when I felt this pain, I was like, well, it kind of feels like period pains, but it's not too bad. It's manageable. But then I noticed that it was becoming quite rhythmic. And I noticed that if I timed them, which I did, it was happening, I think at that point, maybe 10 minutes apart. I don't really remember. So I remember calling Wayne, 3 o'clock in the morning. He was actually at a studio session. And I called him and I said, hey, no need to rush home. I'm just letting you know that I think I'm in labor. It wasn't 2 minutes later, I hear somebody drive up the driveway, and that was Wayne into the room, losing his mind. Anyway, the pain started to move from my tummy to my back. It started to get a little more intense, and then I started to be very sure that I was now in labor, and this was not some kind of false alarm. So I waited until about 7 o'clock before I called my doctor, and I remember calling him and saying, hey, kind of the same conversation I had with Wayne. I'm in labor. I'm not terribly uncomfortable. How long do I have to wait before I come to the hospital? I think I'm about like 5 minutes apart at this point. And he was like, I need you to come in now because, you know, we want to check you and all this stuff. I like to call that one intervention number one. No, you know, a lot of women encouraged me to labor at home for as long as I could. Just because once you go to the hospital, like, you know, they are a hospital, they're going to have to check you, they're going to, you know, put monitors on you, and, you know, it starts to get a little touchy-feely in the sense that you literally are being treated like a medical patient at this point. And that's fine for some people, it's not fine for others. I was kind of down the middle. And so because it was my first baby, I was like, no problem, I'm gonna head down there shortly. I still kind of moseyed, I showered, I ate, I finished packing my bag, which was already packed and ready to go, and I made my way. We weren't in any rush, it didn't feel stressful, it felt exciting, but I didn't feel stressed out because I'd been preparing for this, in the sense that, you know, you're waiting all these weeks for this moment to arrive. And I was very consciously calm about it. So we finally get to the hospital, we get checked in, and the doctor finally comes, and at this point my contractions are definitely picking up. It's definitely more intense, and it's definitely like, yeah, I'm gonna need to breathe through this. When he checked me, I think I was at 2 centimeters. Let me tell you something. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Call it 10 o'clock, may I get checked. That's 8 hours now since I wake up, you know. And I'm saying to myself, 2 centimeters and I have to get to 10? This is gonna take forever, right? And because of how my contractions were feeling, I was like sure that this thing was gonna move along a little faster. Anyway, when I'm talking 2 centimeters, I was like, no problem. Cool. Let's get this show on the road, and let me just, you know, do my visualizations. I have in my headphones. I'm like, I'm listening to music. You know, Wayne is there with me. My cousin, who was like part of my birth support system, Mrs. Mitch, popped in a couple times. You know, we're doing this. Tessie was away at the time, or she would have been with me, but it was right around the time of The Voice, so she was unable to actually be with me during the laboring part, but that's a whole other story. So I finally get to 5 centimeters, and at this point I am feeling what can only be described as some pain. And I started to be like, I think I need an epidural. That's the other thing I can tell you. Like, if you've ever had like a birth without any medication, you will know that there may be a point where you're like, I changed my mind. Like, this is getting a little intense, and I changed my mind. And it's totally okay to feel that way, okay? And it's okay to change your mind if you need to. However, I had spoken to my doctor so much about having this version of a birth story or a birth plan that he really encouraged me. He was like, Tam, that's not what you want. And, you know, let's just try a little bit longer. Plus, I think at this point, he also knew that if there was an epidural to happen, there would be a chance that it could slow everything down as well, which happens sometimes. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it can happen sometimes. Instead, however, I got Pitocin to try and speed things along. I call that intervention number 2. Now, Pitocin is this lovely little thing that they give you that speeds up your contractions, but it also intensifies your contractions. And let me tell you something. That's when I was like, I don't know if I can do this, because it just at that point felt so unbearable. And it was getting to a point where I was just like, no, sir. I can't breathe my way through this. I tell you the truth. So here I was, begging for an epidural again, and, you know, having moments of just like, this is a lot, to just being like, this is fine, this is calm, I am calm, everything's gonna be fine, to I need an epidural right away. Now, bear in mind, at this point I'm having contractions that lasted anywhere between 1 to 2 minutes. So it gone from like a 30-second contraction to like a 1.5 minute contraction, which is intense, because you get out like a break in between, but then it comes back quite intensely. And now I've been laboring for hours, right? So it's hour 15 and I'm at 6 centimeters dilated.
Oh, no.
How am I going to get to 10 is my only thought. And at this point, I am exhausted and I am weak. That's the only way I can think of it. And I feel like I have nothing left in me, but I'm gonna keep going, right? Only to get a check from the doctor that says the baby's heart rate keeps falling every time I have a contraction. And it's not falling in a typical zone that he's comfortable with, and we're gonna keep an eye on it, but I need to start preparing myself for the fact that I may have to have a cesarean section. What? I immediately started to cry because this was not a part of my plan to have a cesarean section. And I did not want to have surgery. I didn't want to deal with the after effects of that. I didn't want to deal with the healing. I didn't want to deal with the cost. I can tell you that, because it's a different cost to have a cesarean section than to have a baby vaginally. I didn't want to have to stay at the hospital for 3 days. I did not want these things. And I remember crying. I remember both Mrs. Mitch and my husband and my cousin were there, and I started to cry. And they all calmed me down and said, you know, Tami, we're gonna have to do what's best for you and for the baby. And so we just have to do this. If that's the case, it is what it is. Well, I don't think it was 2 hours before I was being wheeled down to the operating room, and it just felt like my whole world had turned upside down. But at this point, I had come to terms with the fact that I just wanted my baby. I just wanted my baby to be safe. I wanted me to be safe. And so this is what it was. And if you know me, I am the queen of pivoting. I am the queen of adapting to what is happening. I am the queen of saying, all right, this is what it is. I've finished crying. Let us do this. So I get wheeled down to the operating room and I'm being prepped for surgery. Wayne is having to wear scrubs and all these things. And before you know it, I'm in this room with like bright lights and doctors and assistant doctors and nurses everywhere. Next thing I know is that I am hunched over mid-contraction, getting what is it? Is it a spinal? I don't even know what they call it, but the injection in your back so that you can be totally numbed out to have your cesarean section. It works very quickly. That was my last contraction, and I'm lying down on the table and now kind of just cracking jokes and laughing, and you know, I'm kind of happy because I'm not feeling any more pain and I'm gonna meet my baby soon, and I'm taking my mind off of the fact that I'm about to have major surgery. So I like to keep it light and fun, and anybody who knows me knows that if I am nervous, I am giggling, I am laughing, I am talking, and I'm going a mile a minute. But to this day, you know, it was one of the funniest, most fun experiences that it could have been, and a really pleasant one. I forgot to mention that while I was being wheeled down to the operating room, my doctor put his phone by my ear on the bed and he started to play, "You can reach me by airway, you can reach me by day. I don't care how you get here, just get here if you can." And I remember just being like, yes, it's true, just get here, however you come, it's fine. Anyway, lo and behold, we are in surgery. It doesn't take very long for this quiet comes over the whole room. And my doctor says, "Are you ready?" And my whole life changed in a second. It makes me so emotional. And Jaxen emerges and we hear him cry, and it is the most wonderful thing to hear your baby cry. You don't even know the relief until you hear that child cry. Not all babies cry immediately, you know, that's normal too. But it's definitely something that you wait for and you look forward to hearing. And I remember seeing him go across to the table to the pediatrician. They don't come straight to you, especially in this surgery. And while the doctor is, you know, kind of finishing me up, my focus shifts completely to my baby and the pediatrician. And I'm crying And I just remember saying to Wayne, "Him not cute, you know." Boy, may I tell you the truth. The newborn, them not so cute. May I gotta tell you the truth. People always say the newborn cute. Maybe 1 in a million, but mine, them never so cute when them just born. It don't mean they don't love them, you know. It don't mean they don't happy to see them and all of this jazz. But I just remember thinking, woo, that's a funny looking thing. Anyway, Jaxen weighed, I want to say 8 pounds. He must have been 8 pounds, yeah. 8 pounds or like 1 ounce shy of 8 pounds. But he was very tall. And they bring him over to my face. I kiss him up and I'm like, you know, I love you so much. And what happens next is that because I'm finishing up surgery, they take the baby with dad back up to the nursery. And I am left on the table to complete surgery. It feels like the longest 2 hours of your life, tell you the truth, because from you start surgery to when you see your child again is about 2 hours, sometimes less. Who knows? You're just apart from your baby. And I feel like I've said that a lot this video, but nobody prepares you for the fact that you've just had this baby and now you are apart. And it doesn't make sense. We've been together for the last 9-10 months and now we are apart. Yes, you are safe, you're with your dad, but you're not with me. Devastating feeling. But again, you just have to make it right and okay with you. I finally get to go upstairs now. Everything goes well with my surgery. They put me back together and they wheel Jaxen in the room, and thank God by now they cute up little. It's amazing what's happening in just 2 hours and just, you know, clean up and nice and say yes, him round out, fill up, all kind of thing. And there's my baby and I hold him for the first time and it was just complete bliss, magic, amazing. We literally have like 5 seconds together before they're saying, he needs to eat. You have to start your breastfeeding journey now too, on top of all of this. And I just remember, you know, with the help of some nurses, just trying to figure that part out immediately. And that's really what your journey is about the whole time from that moment on, is figuring it out together. And it was by no means the experience that I had wanted for myself. It is still not an experience I happily choose for myself, but it was how he had to come into this world at the time with the best of our knowledge. And so while I went on to choose something different for Atlas, and that's a whole other story, I'm so grateful that I had the experience I had, because it really prepared me even for this baby. And so with every time I've had to do this again, I've gotten better and better and better. And my healing has always, you know, been better than the last time. I'm stronger always because I know what to expect. And because of my experience with Jaxen, I feel like even my experience with Oz, my last one, I had such an empowered experience. And even now going into my 4th cesarean section, I feel so empowered. And some of you mentioned that in the comments. You were saying, you know, boy, Tami, you seem so confident about going in for your 4th. I mean, there are women who have 6 and 7, yeah? But I do feel confident because I have to be. And I expect the outcome to be good, you know, all while understanding everything that could go wrong. I am confident that every time I've done this, we've had a good and better experience than the last. So that was really my pregnancy and birth story with Jax. And, you know, we went on to stay a couple nights in the hospital and I got to go home a few days later. The nurses were amazing. The staff was amazing. I mean, it was just one of those experiences that I couldn't have asked for a better experience, albeit the experience was not what I had originally planned. And so I would say to moms out there, you have to be open to the possibility that things might not go the way you expect. You have to be open to the fact that this is birth, which means it's not perfect. It's not just beautiful. It's messy. It is filled with emotions. It's filled with curveballs, and you just have to ride that wave. I think the most important thing is that you have to be open to having a new experience, a different experience, and being okay with that. I went on to have months of trying to make that experience okay, because I really wanted to have a specific type of birth. And having a different type of birth left me feeling quite broken, for a long time. It made me feel like I wasn't like my birth wasn't valid. And then I was really shamed by women who would say to me, oh, you had a cesarean, that was an easy way out. And I was like, easy? It was one of the hardest experiences of my life. The recovery, just the surgery, just the whole thing, breastfeeding after. I couldn't even pick up my baby on my own. There was nothing easy about it. And, I had women tell me how that was the easy way out. And then, it was just a lot. And it really made me feel like my birth story all of a sudden didn't matter. But I'm here to tell you that it did. And for those of us who have had belly births, as I love to call them, and when I show my boys my scar, I tell them, that's where you were born from, that you had a belly birth. And I say with so much pride now, because I know that it took a lot for me to bring them here. And I don't take anybody else's experience for granted. I think all of our experiences are valid, whether you've had a vaginal birth, a non-medicated birth, an epidural vaginal birth, a cesarean, a water birth, a home birth. They are all valid, whether you chose to do a cesarean section or you chose something else. Can we just be kind to each other about how we bring our babies into this world and realize that all of our stories matter? And that was what I had to learn, that there was this beautiful realization for me that no birth is better than the other. No birth is worse than the other, but it is just our experience. And it's the same thing that carries on into parenting. I'm not doing a better job at you because I choose this way, or you're not doing better than me because XYZ. It's not a competition, and nor are our birth stories. And the most we can do is share so that we can relate to each other and be like, hey, that sounded like my story, as opposed to judge each other. So yeah, I just want to put that out there. Anyway, this probably has gone on a little longer than expected. I hope that I remembered enough that this has come together and has been interesting for you. And I hope that somewhere in this story you feel encouraged. Maybe you laughed a little bit. Maybe you identified with certain things. And that as a community, we can come together and, cheer each other on no matter what our births look like. So the next birth story I'm going to tell you about in another video will be Atlas, where I told you last time I attempted a VBAC. And with Atlas, like I said, it was very different. I was at home laboring for about 20 hours. I had a birthing pool, the whole thing. That's a whole other story I can't wait to get into with you because it's quite an interesting one. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know if you did. If you did, then I will absolutely tell you the other story. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please share with me something interesting about your birth story in the comments. Let me know if you had what your birth was like. Let me know if it was what you expected or if it was completely different. Let me know if it went seamlessly or if you had twists and turns along the way. It all helps to just make us feel a lot more connected and a lot more normal because God knows this whole journey is just something else completely. I have so much lined up for you guys, so much to come in the next few weeks, and I can't wait for us to go on this journey together and to continue on this journey together. So thanks for being here. I hope you like this one. Share this video with someone who you think might enjoy it, and I'll see you soon. Mwah.